रेडी फ्रेंड्स, हम लोग नवंबर 2019 प्रोग्रेसिव मैगजीन की एक्सरसाइज 22 की डिक्टेशन देने जा रहे हैं। सो प्लीज रेडी, 5 seconds, start. Mr. Vice Chairman, before I come to the bill, I would like to point out the unfair and unhealthy practice of piecemeal legislation. If I am correct, last year also we have made an amendment to this particular Act of 1948 regarding formation of a reserve fund or something like that to the tune of 3%. My point is, as far as possible, the legislation must be comprehensive. This act was originally passed in 1949 and now 60 years have elapsed. If the government considered some amendments necessary to that principal act, it should come forward with comprehensive legislation after a careful study. I do hope that the minister will take my suggestion into consideration. The Honorable Minister has already explained that the objective of this amendment bill is to amend the Principal Act of 1948, enabling the state electricity boards and other power generating authorities to execute power generation schemes with a capital expenditure not exceeding rupees 5 crores without the sanction of the Central Electricity Authority. Sir, in the Principal Act, this limit was rupees 1 crore. He has also explained that this amendment is in the background of price escalation over the last 36 years. As I said, the original act was passed in 1948. If we compare the price position and the value of money as in 1948 with that obtaining now, the present limit of rupees 5 crore is not commensurate with the rate of price escalation. In fact, the price escalation has been 100 times. Therefore, I do not think this amending bill is going to serve any meaningful purpose. Not only that, it will not be possible to execute a power generating scheme with an investment of rupees 5 crore only at the present juncture, and then installation of smaller units is not feasible in the present position. Therefore, this will not serve the purpose of generating more electricity to meet the needs of the country. So far as the state electricity boards are concerned, this amending bill does not serve the object. After the nationalization of power generation units after independence, all the state electricity boards in the country are incurring losses, and the total loss comes to nearly rupees 14,000 crores till last year. I am not going into the details of these things, but what I am trying to point out is that the power generation projects need heavy investment. None of the state electricity boards are now in a position to raise funds on their own for starting or installing new power generation project because of the financial constraint which the states are facing. It is my apprehension that this amendment will encourage the private sector to start to small units for power generation. I think encouraging the private sector to start projects for power generation will create so many problems. In the absence of centralized policy of power generation and distribution in the public sector, the whole planning process in the country will be affected. In the name of financial constraint, if we encourage the private sector to install small units on their own to generate electricity, it will be detrimental to the whole planning process in the country. My apprehension is that enabling anybody to start power generating unit with a capital investment to the tune of rupees 5 crores will encourage the private sector to install a small generating units. This policy is quite contrary to the whole approach which we have had at the time of nationalization of power generation on projects all over the country. After 60 years of independence, India's power generation presents a black picture. The present installed capacity being 40,000 megawatt as against 50,000 megawatt targeted by the end of the 10th plan. Now we are at the fag end of the 6th plan period. The actual generation is less, half with the actual supply reduced by 22%, that is 16% by way of transmission losses and another 6% due to thefts. We have to intensify the power generation process in the country on an emergency basis. In this direction, we are now concentrating on nuclear projects. I am not against the nuclear projects, but they have their own technical and environmental problems. Therefore, in the present day of energy crisis, development of hydroelectric projects provide the cleanest and cheapest source of power, and this is a must in the national interest. Hydro sources in the southern region are almost exhausted except in Kerala, which is the state I am representing here. In Kerala, the sources are still here. We can generate 2000 megawatt of additional power during the coming 2 decades. With a view to achieve this target, our state had already submitted 9 hydroelectric projects for clearance by the Central Electricity Authority and the Planning Commission. Stop.